Morning, everyone. I'm glad to see that you're here, and welcome to Emerald Ash Borer University, coming to you live from my office at Michigan State University. My name is Robin Usborne, and along with my colleagues, Adam Witt from Purdue University and Amy Stone from the Ohio State University Extension, we hope you'll find this webinar informative. Today, we're going to hear from a person who's been dealing with emerald ash borer in an urban setting firsthand. Randy Krouse is an urban forestry district manager for the city of Milwaukee, and he is an ISA certified arborist and an urban forestry graduate from the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point. Putting together a plan to manage an EAB infestation in a municipal setting is a daunting task, but Randy and his cohorts in Milwaukee have taken that challenge and created a plan that is working for Milwaukee. We're fortunate today that Randy is willing to share his insights with us. Just wanted to let you know, if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to write them in the chat pod. We will make a note of them, and Randy will be responding to these questions after the presentation so that we can keep the flow of the webinar smooth. Please stay tuned until the end because we would like to get your feedback, and we'll be providing a link to a survey that we'd like you to participate in. As well, for those of you needing CEUs, your survey information is necessary for us to process those CEUs. The first 10 people to participate will receive an EAB goodie bag. Even if you've received a goodie bag in the past, we would appreciate your continued feedback on this webinar as well. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing this week at www.emeraldashborer.info. You will also find the recordings for all our previous EAB University webinars there. And please give us your feedback about you because we're always wanting to know how we can make these webinars better. Thank you for attending today. And with that, I'll bring up Randy's presentation and we will begin. There you go, Randy.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Robin. Hopefully everybody can see this and can hear me well. I just wanted to give a shout out and thanks to EAB University and Purdue University, Ohio State University, and Michigan State University and the U.S. Forest Service for allowing me to speak and share our experiences on building up our EAB management program. Really, myself and the forestry division within the city of Milwaukee has been working on EAB management planning and strategy planning for at least 10 to 11 years, ever since we found out about EAB affecting ash trees over in the Detroit area and in Michigan in general. We've been pretty fortunate in the city of Milwaukee to get ahead of the game and not have any infestations until last year. So it really has allowed us to do quite a bit of proactive planning before we really had any threat of EAB that we knew of. So, you know, we've been very fortunate that way. Emerald ash borer is or will be affecting all of our communities. There's no doubt about it, and it's important that we all get together and webinars and seminars and really share our plans and our experiences to prepare from EAB. We can really learn from each other. That's why I'm excited to share our plan with you guys. EAB readiness planning is really about anticipation, preparation, and proactive planning. And that really can differ based on individual communities' needs and resources. I realize every strategy will be different. We all need to realize that the problem is not going to go away. It's going to keep ripping through our communities. And as far as like developing strategies that work for you within your own community, just be patient and trust in your strategies. As we watched EAB, you know, rip through the Midwest, starting in 2004, I apologize for the blurry map here, but in 2004, this is what the infestations looked like around the Detroit area in Michigan. We watched it go from that to this in 2006. Again, more outlier infestations, EAB moving into Ohio, EAB moving into Indiana, EAB moving up into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which really got us worried in Wisconsin. Again, in 2007, even more outlier infestations, EAB ripping through there. And this was a biggie for us in Wisconsin and in Milwaukee especially. We watched EAB start to infest ash trees in the Chicago area and then move out from there. Of course, this is the latest map of EAB infestations, and you can see it, from Chicago. Then it was started to be found in Wisconsin, and these are the general infestation and quarantine areas in Wisconsin now up here, including Milwaukee. So we have many counties that have found EAB, and it keeps moving on, as we know. Milwaukee's our first EAB infestation find was last year in 2012. It was a pretty heavy infestation. We estimate that, and here's an example of one property that has infestation of EAB. It was a pretty old infestation. We estimate at about 5 to 6 years old. Not surprising to us for us to find it, but still shocking nonetheless to actually find it in your own backyard. Like I said, it was a heavy infestation, so I'm sure, beyond this, we've been finding other trees on private property beyond this, expanding out from this general infestation. It really confirms the fact to us that, early detection of EAB can be difficult because we didn't find this infestation till well after the trees were nearly dead. Our second find, we found another infestation within the city of Milwaukee just this year, 2 months ago in September. Both of these infestations were actually found by one of our urban forestry management managers, which is a testament to our education program and the learning phase for us. That one, again, was another heavy infestation. We estimate probably about 5 years old. So we got, 2 different infestations through in different parts of the city, and we know and we realize that it's probably a larger problem than just that isolated infestations. I'm sure it's spread out from there by now based on how old it is. So basically, the city of Milwaukee has moved from a EAB ready community to a EAB infested community. And that really should give us further support for our EAB readiness planning and management planning, and also give us more opportunity to educate our general public and public officials about emerald ash borer impacts. First thing I want to talk about is when we first found out about EAB and how big of a problem it would be for ash trees and communities. Our first mode of action was really just learning all we could about EAB, learning what the impacts are to communities, learning about the insect, learning how it spreads, you name it. So for the first 3 years, 2002 through 2004, 2005, we learned all we could. And that learning phase really went a long ways for us. We did that through attending as many conferences and seminars as possible, reading as many articles and research papers as possible, and really a biggie was doing a lot of professional networking. talking with communities that were already infested with EAB, also talking with communities that were preparing for EAB but didn't have any known infestations. This learning process was invaluable for us too, because in developing our current EAB response planning, and we are continue to learn, of course. Some of the things we learned, obviously, was learn as much as we could about the insect itself, emerald ash borer life cycle, the various stages, and at what times of the year those stages exist. And of course, you know, like most wood-boring insects, the larval stage, that is basically the killer stage of the insect, and really the stage of the insect that you want to try to control. We also learned about signs and symptoms of EAB, especially decline symptoms. When you start to see decline symptoms such as this, heavy decline, yellowing of leaves, severe decline in the upper crown, water sprouts at the bottom of the crown. This happens to be from our second infestation. As you can see, pretty heavy. Once you start seeing that, it's very evident that there's not much you can do for trees like that, but remove and hopefully replace. We also talked about or learned about the various signs of the insect that become evident on trees that are infested with EAB, such as D-shaped exit holes and S-shaped larval galleries. You know, obviously, once you start seeing that in the trunk of the tree, we have learned, you know, it's really beyond control, and trees such as that would have to be removed. And again, I want to reinforce the fact that you know, once you see symptoms like this, you know, it's beyond help, and really evident that early detection can be very difficult with EAB. We also learned about how EAB moves around, how it spreads. Yeah, it can naturally spread based on, you know, the concentration of ash trees in an infestation area. We learned that, you know, if you have a lot of ash trees in a given area where infestation is, they might not move out from that area as fast until they really consume that resource. If you have an infestation where you have ash trees that are a little more spread out, they might move a little farther out and a little faster. But we also learned that human movement of EAB was really how it was spreading around, especially ripping through into outlier areas and moving through the you know, United States in general pretty fast. And that's basically human movement of infested wood, such as firewood, nursery stock, and packing material. So that's really the biggest problem of EAB spread, is over long distances, is that us moving it around. Some take-home messages we really took seriously during our learning phase was the basic devastating impacts of EAB within the urban environment. Economic impacts of EAB, including removal and replacement costs, can be really can strap communities with high costs. Canopy benefit loss, such as stormwater retention, benefit loss, carbon sequestration, and, you know, air quality loss within communities, and also energy conservation on specific properties and within neighborhoods. We also knew that, you know, EAB can also affect ash trees in more natural areas. As we all know, ash trees do grow pretty readily in river bottom areas. In the city of Milwaukee, we have 3 riverways that run through the city. One is the Milwaukee River, the other is the Kinnickinnick River, and the other is the Menominee River, where a lot of ash trees do exist. And really, EAB is going to have a heavy impact there as well, and soil stabilization and erosion problems. And another thing I like to stress with EAB impacts is within neighborhoods. When you have neighborhoods that have streets lined with ash trees, and the potential of those ash trees dying from EAB and having to be removed, that can have a real heavy effect on the feel of those neighborhoods and the psyche of those neighborhoods. So I truly believe there is a sociological impact of EAB as well. Some other take-home messages we learned during the learning phase was like I said before, early detection is extremely difficult, which really dovetails into having to proactively plan ahead of EAB. Usually you don't detect it until 3 to 5 years after infestation. Explosive population growth. Once EAB takes hold within a given area, it can really reproduce pretty quickly and start consuming ash resource fairly quickly. We also learned that, with dead ash trees and the necessity to remove those dead ash trees, you can plan on having a large amount of wood waste associated with that. And what do you do with all that wood waste? That's a big question. And I guess the big question any community should ask themselves is, really, do you see that as waste, or do you see that as an opportunity to recycle? We also learned, especially early on, that early on efforts to eradicate the pests and slow the pests through eradication cuts were expensive and eventually abandoned, and were often futile attempts to try to slow the spread of emerald ash borer. So moving on into our management planning, the forestry section within the city of Milwaukee is really, we are the stewards of the urban forest within the city of Milwaukee. So we knew our department and the professionals within our department were going to be responsible for coming up with a strategy to manage EAB within the city of Milwaukee. Other communities that may not have as large a staff as us still, can do other things, such as through tree boards, or if you have a consulting arborist that helps you with your tree population within your city, it can really go that way as well. We feel like our strategy is it was real methodical and a multifaceted strategy. So we started with basic planning, drilled that down into details, and then once we had the details down, then we put those into specific action steps on how we were going to manage EAB once it took hold within our community, and even well before that. Each community is going to have that, your strategy tailored to your specific community goals, and will be based on your specific community's resources. Once you have a strategy in place, of course, it's very important to garner the support of your public officials for your EAB strategy. I can't stress that enough. Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett, once we started educating him and the Common Council on, what EAB is, that it's coming to our community, and what effects it's going to have on our community's ash trees, they really got on board with that and really supported whatever strategies we could come up with to plan for that. Another big part of our management planning for EAB was, obviously educate the public officials, but once you got their support, to budget for response in advance of EAB detection. So obviously, response planning and action steps to plan for EAB comes with a cost, and we wanted to make sure we were able to garner the funds through obviously the approval of our city officials to further our EAB strategies. Milwaukee's EAB readiness and response strategies really it started out as basic as possible, but then, like I said, got drilled down into detail as we went. As we watched EAB spread quickly across multiple states, Forestry decided on 3 critical action steps to prepare for EAB's inevitable arrival. Really, the basic mission was a risk management strategy. And with that, before you even go into your action steps, we wanted to assess what our ash tree population was. Basically, how many ash trees do we have in the city of Milwaukee? Where are the ash trees? And what is the public safety risk of losing those ash trees? Who and what are at risk from the loss of the ash trees? Once we were able to assess that risk, then we took that information to our public officials and basically gave them the message on EAB impacts that were inevitably going to affect our city. Again, public safety, economics in the bottom line, which they always like to hear, and really the loss of living infrastructure within the city of Milwaukee and the canopy benefit loss that could potentially happen. And then, of course, once we had that strategy in place, we wanted to manage the risks within our control. Again, we oversee all the street trees within the city of Milwaukee, so we knew we would have to do something to manage risk over time with our street trees. But yet at the same time, we also wanted to empower residents to manage their ash trees on their own properties as well. So EAB risk assessment. Within the city of Milwaukee, we knew we had to understand what our ash resource is within the city of Milwaukee, and that included public trees and private ash trees. We wanted to know the number of ash trees, both public and private, within the city of Milwaukee. We wanted to know where these trees existed. We also wanted to know other attributes of the ash trees, such as the size of the ash trees and the condition of ash trees. Very important in, basically quantifying the impacts of EAB. Also, another part of our assessment was to assess the risk to public safety. That was our number one concern when you have the potential of having thousands and thousands of ash trees at risk with the EAB, and dying and existing on the street. That is a huge public safety concern. Always the number one priority within an urban environment. We also wanted to assess what the economical impact would be of EAB. That would include removal and replacement costs, potential treatment costs if we decided to go for treatment of all or some of our ash trees, and really what impact that would have on our other operations within the city. If we were strapped with removing and or treating a number of ash trees every year, how would that affect our other services, such as our planting program, our pruning program, and our other tree removals? We really had to look at that as an impact as well. Of course, we wanted to look at environmental impact to the city as a whole. What our ash trees as a whole, how does that provide stormwater retention benefits, air quality benefits, energy conservation benefits, and those things that would be at risk to EAB infestation. So the first project we started for assessing EAB risk and assessing our ash tree population within the city of Milwaukee was a GIS-based street tree inventory. We wanted to get this started, so we decided on a full inventory, not just a sample inventory of our public trees. That would be trees that grow between the sidewalk and the curb and on our 120 miles of boulevard system that we manage as a forestry division. So we wanted to assess our whole tree population, gather data on every tree, as much data as possible, including site and tree information. We also wanted to drill that down, and having a full street tree inventory, we were able to assess our public ash resource. This eventually allowed us to use this as a management tool for our whole tree population, and we currently use it for operational planning for our forestry division, and allows us to do quick analysis of our tree population as a whole or even individual species. Our street tree inventory project started in 2004, and we completed in 2009. So it ended up being a 5-year project to inventory all of our all of our trees within the city of Milwaukee. Most of the data was collected by interns that we hired for the summer months. All the interns needed to have tree ID experience and tree assessment experience, and we hired them from colleges, mainly colleges where there was an established forestry or horticulture program or some sort of environmental study program. With that, we also had interns that gained valuable experience for their own purposes, for their own careers, and it was a real low cost for us instead of having to use our full-time staff. We did use some full-time staff to do some inventorying, but for the most part, the interns inventoried all of our trees with oversight, of course. And like I said before, this really went a long ways, and it was an invaluable tool for assessing and developing EAB management strategies. When we were done with the inventory, we were able to pinpoint exactly where all of our city ash trees were. We were able to project costs of ash loss and protection, and we were able to efficiently, generate work orders and listings for ash management programs, such as our treatment program and our ash removal program. The data that we drew out of our street tree inventory looks like this. We have 195,000 street trees total in the city of Milwaukee that the forestry division does manage. 33,000 of those trees are ash trees, which accounts for about 17% of our total tree population. We value our ash trees at $46 million in standing structural value. And also we were able to project what it would cost to remove and replace all the ash trees on the street. That was $27 million total, and approximately $750 average size ash tree. Average size ash tree within the city of Milwaukee is 16 inches at diameter at DBH, and our structural value of our trees was based on $100 per diameter inch, which obviously is an important asset to the city of Milwaukee. We used all of this baseline data to educate our public officials on EAB impacts and what the bottom line would be to manage it. It was also very critical in comparing costs of proactive long-term removal program versus a reactionary short-term removal program. Another project that we did for assessing our ash resource was a U4 study, our urban forestry effects study, put out by the U.S. Forest Service. We use that program. What U4 is a computer modeling program used to quantify the whole urban forest within the city, both public and private trees. We were also with this program, we were able to quantify the number of ash trees at risk in Milwaukee. We were able to estimate the value of the ash trees, and we were also able to estimate canopy benefits provided by ash trees. The U4 study was completed in 2008, another intern project during that summer month, or those summer months. 216 random sample plots were used throughout the city. I believe those were 18-foot radius plots to analyze all the vegetation within those sample plots. And then all that information and data was extrapolated out to give us a full analysis and estimation of what our urban forest composition was. This really helped us support EAB readiness and response planning, and was also used to spearhead an urban tree benefits awareness campaign for the public, which was a grant-funded project by the Wisconsin DNR Urban Forestry Grant Program. Some of the data that we drew out of our U4 study looks like this. We were from U4, we estimated 3.4 million trees exist within the city limits of Milwaukee. Counts for 21% canopy coverage, which we realize is pretty low, and we would like to build that up over time. The urban forest within the city of Milwaukee is valued at 1.4 billion structural value, which is pretty staggering numbers that you can take to your public officials. Also, EAB impacts data that we were able to draw out of U4 for specifically to identify what emerald ash borer would have an impact on our ash trees. We estimated 587,000 ash trees are at risk within the city of Milwaukee. That's 17% canopy loss of that 21% canopy coverage, which is pretty big and big number and staggering impact. We value the ash trees alone within the city of Milwaukee, both public and private, at $221 million in structural value. And then we were able to get information like annual loss in pollutant removal benefits, $243,000, $138,000 annual loss in energy savings benefits, and $2.6 million loss in stormwater reduction benefits if we lost all the ash trees within the city of Milwaukee. Another project that we started and completed was an ash tree mapping project. You know, we were able to identify where the public ash trees were and all the information that goes along with it, but we asked ourselves, what if we could pinpoint where private ash trees are, where the exact locations where those trees are throughout the city of Milwaukee? And that's what brought up our hyperspectral imagery project. And that imagery project allowed us to map the location of ash trees at risk, both public and private, within the city of Milwaukee. hyperspectral imagery really was a high-tech project involving a lot of different partners. I am by no means an expert on hyperspectral imagery. My boss, David Sivier, who is the Forestry Services Manager within the city of Milwaukee, took this on and really moved forward with it, and it really has been helpful. What I can tell you is it does use LiDAR technology, hyperspectral sensoring, which gives you basically a digital map overlaid with a GIS map that can pinpoint where ash trees are on specific parcels within the city of Milwaukee. Basically, what hyperspectral imagery is each tree has its own individual light reflectivity. So the leaves of specific species of trees gives off its own light reflectivity within the electromagnetic spectrum. Each species then has its own, basically has its own signature within the electromagnetic spectrum. And if you can capture that information, you can basically digitally map that out. The data and aerial imagery collected for this project was done in 2008. Once the data was collected, it was, let me go back to that last slide. As you can see here, there's the people we brought in to do that. He has a little scope here that basically this is where he is actually collecting data on the light reflectivity of ash leaves. They also collected data on other common species of our urban forests, so they could separate out those common species from ash trees and then specifically identify ash trees. This data was analyzed and refined. Once refined, the ash species map was overlaid with a property parcel map, and this picture is an example of that. This is a neighborhood within the city of Milwaukee. All these little green blobs on here are ash trees, and as you can see, there's public ash trees or street trees lining the street, but you can also see some of these ash trees that are on private property as well. Once that, overlaying that with a GIS and getting property information such as addresses and ownership, we were able to identify exactly where private ash trees were within the city of Milwaukee. Of course, there had to be some verification of the accuracy of this project, and we did do some ground truthing, going out and beating the pavement and basically seeing if this project was identifying ash trees properly out there. We did have 84% overall accuracy using this project, which we thought was very good and would allow us to move forward with using that data for a meaningful purpose to educate our public on ash tree identification and management. What we got out of this project was we identified 15,315 properties within the city of Milwaukee that have one or more ash trees. The overall objectives of hyperspectral imagery was to map the location of ash species in the city of Milwaukee with 80% or greater accuracy. We integrated the ash species map with existing GIS to provide specific property ownership and contact info for ash trees citywide. We were able to evaluate the use of hyperspectral imagery in conjunction with iTree U4. This is actually a project still in development to analyze and predict EAB wood waste volume. And also establish a best management practice for EAB and other invasive species risk assessment. The cost of this project was $176,000 for the full 94 square miles of the city of Milwaukee, which turned out to be about $1,700 per square mile. This got paid for through city EAB capital funding, Wisconsin DNR grants, and We Energies partner funding. We Energies is our local power company. All the partners that were involved to get this project up and running and completed was City of Milwaukee Forestry Division, We Energies, the City of Mequon, Wisconsin got on board, RFP Mapping LLC, ASD Incorporated, SRA International Incorporated, Terra Remote Sensing and University of Victoria, and the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. I just wanted to get this out there, especially for smaller communities. There are, other ways you could simply inventory ash, especially on private property, would be to do a fall windshield survey. This would be a good suggestion for smaller communities that don't have the resources to do some of the projects that like we have done. But a fall windshield survey, as we all know, ash trees do turn color and drop leaves a lot earlier than many species do. So this would be a good way to get out and identify those ash trees on private property just by early fall color. Of course, the drawback to that would be you would have to, it's a very narrow survey window, so you'd have to beat the pavement in a short amount of time at the right time. There's a lot of really cool programs you can use through the iTree suite, including sample inventories of your tree population, either public and or private, to project EAB impacts and costs. And of course, don't shortchange the opportunity to use volunteers to collect information for you as well, which will keep costs low. Once we assessed our ash resource in the city of Milwaukee, which was a daunting task in itself, we wanted to move on into our risk management strategies. We assessed our ash resource, which helped us support our strategies to manage risk of EAB within the city of Milwaukee. Obviously, number one priority was to protect public safety. The City Forestry Division is responsible for public safety of trees within the city of Milwaukee, not only the trees that we manage, but also on private property through the Private Hazard Tree Enforcement Program and ordinance. We wanted to develop strategies to control EA impacts on a manageable schedule. That was our main mission. We wanted to be able to deal with ash trees on our schedule, not EAB's schedule. And we also wanted to educate and empower private property owners to manage their own ash trees, which would further reduce our code enforcement responsibilities. Of course, our risk management strategy, again, we needed to educate our public officials on EAB impacts, EAB management options, garner the support of public officials for EAB strategy, which is mainly funding for our programs. Educate staff. We have a pretty large forestry staff, and they are the eyes and ears of our urban forester out there. So we wanted to make sure they knew what they were looking for out in the field. Educate the public on ash and EAB identification and options for them on how to manage ash trees on their property. Again, City of Milwaukee economic impact, 33,000 ash trees on the street. This is the information we want to get out to the public officials. Average replacement costs for a 12-inch ash tree on the street is estimated at $750. Potential cost to remove and replace all street trees was estimated at $27,000. We wanted to get this out to the public officials that we would have a huge amount of urban wood waste that would have significant costs as well, and significant increase in dead and hazard tree inspections. Some of the management options we were looking at. First, we were looking at all the various treatment options. Bark treatment we ruled out because really it's more effective on small, thin bark trees. We didn't really understand what may be the exposure problems to the applicator and the public if we tried that, so we ruled that out. Soil treatments we weren't interested in going for because we knew we also had to treat a large amount of large trees, and didn't seem to be a very efficient way to go for the amount of trees we would have to treat throughout the city of Milwaukee. And really with soil application, you would have to use a chemical that you would have to apply every year because of the shorter residual window. So we ruled out those options. What we really looked at was trunk injection along with remove and replant with increased diversity over time. That was going to be our main management option when we first started thinking about this, and continues to be that as we move forward. We like the idea of trunk injection, reduced exposure to applicator and the environment and the public. Very effective for wood-boring insects. And once triage came on board, we knew we could get at least 2-year control. So we would have to treat individual ash trees every 2 years as opposed to every year. And we, of course, we wanted to, we were realistic about it. We know we can't inject trees forever, so we are moving forward with somewhat of a removal and replanting program as well along with that. So that was our main focus for management options, and that we proposed to public officials to get funding. Here's some of the things, some of the in-your-face costs that we were able to give to public officials to give them, information to make some informed decisions to fund our programs. Again, method of treatment for injecting ash trees was using ArborJet air hydraulic, and this was based on a time study. We studied various methods for injecting ash trees and came up with decided to go with ArborJet air hydraulic to be the most efficient method to treat ash trees, using emamectin benzoate for 2-year control. We wanted to target generally healthy ash trees greater than 8 inches in diameter. The reason we decided on that size limit was because we knew we could remove trees less than 8 inches fairly quickly and efficiently. The cost for that works out to be $35 per tree per year. We are able to use interns to do that. That's why we keep our labor costs fairly low. We compared that to what replacement costs would be, 33,000 total ash trees if we were to do a removal and replacement strategy only. That would have worked out to be $750 per tree. So comparing that with that, it was an easy sell to our Common Council and the mayor to move ahead with a treatment program. Total removal and replacement cost again is $27,000. Our ash tree injection program. We currently have 27,000 trees under treatment. We treat every healthy ash tree greater than 8 inches in diameter every 2 years. We use in-house staff, mostly interns, to treat those trees to keep, and they are trained and certified applicators to treat those ash trees to keep the labor costs as low as possible. So we use a total of 18 interns to do that. We run 9 crews to do our injections, 2 to 3 people per crew. And really, this is a systematic process throughout the city. We do this in management units. We route them to make this as efficient as possible. As they move through and see trees that are poor quality and not worthy of treatments, we do remove 200 to 300 ash trees per year based on just poor condition alone. Overall goals of our ash tree injection program are to manage risk during transition to resistant species. It's also to spread out our removals over time so it's least disruptive to our other forestry operations. Also to prevent, immediate catastrophic loss of street tree canopy and associated benefits. Eliminate crisis management. Reduce wave of wood. So all that wood that would come along with a real aggressive removal strategy. There's costs associated with that. So we wanted to reduce that as well. As far as removals of ash trees within the city of Milwaukee, we currently, like I said, remove 200 to 300 poor condition ash trees immediately. We work pretty closely with We Energies to, whenever they're working on a project, to either prune trees, or if they're doing an upgrade of their system. A lot of times, as you can see in this picture right here, we'll go ahead and remove those ash trees under those wires and replace them with a suitable species that can grow under wires. We currently are not removing the untreated ash trees that are under 8 inches yet. We do not have a go ahead or the green light to do that, but we are considering that fairly soon. And of course, when we go into these areas, we like to diversify our street tree plantings. We use an intra-block diversity plan, meaning we don't like to use any less than 4 genera of species on a given block, and we do that citywide. Along with our ash street tree removal and replacement program, we currently are recycling all of our large wood that we remove off the street, not just ash trees, but all trees off the street. We are currently diverting all that large wood from removals to be processed at a wood processing center, and they'll mill up as much wood as they can to have a good end use. This project on the right hand side, this is inside the Clock Shadow building in the 5th ward of the city of Milwaukee, and these stairs are all built with urban ash wood from the city of Milwaukee, and it really does have a beautiful grain and demonstrates that ash wood does have a good end use. We also did a community awareness program, a door-to-door outreach campaign to educate our private property owners who have ash trees, and this is based on the hyperspectral imagery data. We visited all 15,000 of those properties that have ash trees to educate those homeowners on EAB management options. This was done by summer interns as well in 2010 to empower our homeowners to make informed decisions on how they're going to deal with their ash trees in relation to emerald ash borer. We also did we educated our general public on tree canopy benefits and EAB management. A lot of that information came from our U4 study. We did this through billboard and radio campaigns. As you can see on the right, we did some billboards that really gave simple messages to the public on the assets of our urban forest, and information about emerald ash borer and what those impacts are going to be, and how they can manage it on their own properties. We also have a website, milwaukeetrees.milwaukee.gov, that also allows the public to go on and learn about the value of urban trees and the problems associated with emerald ash borer. We also have another project that we're currently doing. It's called the EAB Mitigation Project. That is, it's a grant-funded project through the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. Basically, it's an emphasis on urban trees' role in stormwater retention. And what this project is it's a cost share assistance program for select properties with ash trees. So property owners that wanted to apply for the program, they would get selected through a lottery process, and would be able to secure some money to manage their own ash trees. So far, we have 313 participants to date. And we also see this as another educational opportunity for homeowners to protect urban tree canopy for stormwater benefits, demonstration for EAB management for homeowners, encourages residents to act now, and leverages possible future funding. Each homeowner in the EAB mitigation project has two options to deal with their ash trees on their property. They can either remove and replace, which demonstrates the eliminating EAB risk, provides quality replacement shade tree, which is grown by our own nursery, demonstrates proper planting and care practices, reinforces importance of canopy replacement. So far, we have 192 property owners have had their ash trees removed and replaced to date. All done this year. The other option was to have your ash tree injected, and this is all done by contractor set up by the city of Milwaukee. And what that does is provides 2 years of protection for their ash tree or ash trees, preserves existing healthy trees, reinforces importance of urban tree canopy preservation. So far, 121 private ash trees have been treated to date for property owners within the city of Milwaukee. Now that we know we have infestations, we are doing some windshield surveys of our ash trees and infestations. When we do find ash trees that are infested greater than 30% dieback, we mark them for removal and force those property owners to remove those trees under the hazard tree ordinance. We did homeowners that are forced to remove their ash trees because of hazardous nature, they do have an option to pay that over time, basically almost like an installment plan over 6 years. And that ordinance and amendment went into effect this year to really soften the blow for homeowners that are forced to remove their ash trees because of EAB infestations. As far as our EAB management program, I got some simple take-home messages for any communities that are preparing for EAB. Early detection of EAB is difficult. We know EAB has explosive population growth. Expect a large spike of ashwood and look at that as either way. You really should look at that as an opportunity to recycle. Understand your ash resource, both public and private trees, including location, size, and condition. And have a strategy. Be proactive and that's going to be different for everybody, every community's needs and resources, but have a strategy in place. Educate your public and public officials, get them on board and supportive of your strategies, because that's really needed. That is key to for funding of your management programs. And budget for response in advance of EAB. This is my contact information. Feel free to contact me at any time if you need specific details about our EAB management program. And I just wanted to again thank EAB University for allowing me the opportunity to talk, and I hope everybody has gleaned some information from this presentation and what the City of Milwaukee is doing to manage EAB. Thanks again.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it. We do have some questions for you.
Okay.
The City of Onalaska wants to know, could you clarify, did the initial inventory include both public and private trees?
If they're referring to the street tree inventory, that was just public trees. So our computerized street tree inventory was public trees.
And Bob Everingham would like to know, how did you arrive at the values for your ash trees?
Well, we knew that the value of we got some of that information through the Wisconsin DNR, and I believe the UW Extension, University of Wisconsin Extension. They valued, we got that information from them, and the value of average size ash tree, which I believe was 12 inches in diameter, was valued at $1,200.
Okay, Bill would like to know, where did the money come from, and was there any resistance to that cost?
I guess I would need clarification on the money for which project.
I'm thinking that when he asked us, it was near the initial inventory, but I'm hoping he will come back on and type a response to that. Go ahead.
Well, for our inventory, some of that was grant funded. In fact, I remember we had a grant in 2004 to inventory some of our public trees in the downtown area, and then that grant got expanded. I believe most of the money for conducting our street tree inventory were Wisconsin urban forestry grants through the Wisconsin DNR. So those were $25,000 grants each year during the whole process, the whole 5 years of inventorying our ash trees. And then we had to come up with a $25,000 match. So that was $50,000 a year to conduct our inventory with interns in the summer. If it costs more than that, we absorb that within our forestry budget.
All right, thank you. Aaron would like to know, what species were being picked up in air with your electromagnetic spectrum?
Yes, that's a good question. Actually, we had false positives, I believe, with, I do remember silver maples, and I believe honey locusts. Those two were biggies that popped up, I believe. I know silver maple for sure, and I'm pretty sure honey locusts were also ones that were picked up by the hyperspectral imagery. So I'm not sure why they were being confused with ash. Maybe they're pretty close within the electromagnetic spectrum that it produced false positives.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions for Randy? We've got a couple minutes. We can keep the meeting room open. I've also brought up the survey slide. So if folks would like to get on there and access the survey and give us your feedback on our presentation today, that would be most helpful to all of us. I've also put Randy's email down on the notes pod down near the bottom in case you weren't able to grab that contact information before. So with that, I would like to...
Robin?
Yes.
Rob? I have to interrupt. That email is actually wrong.
Oh, okay.
It's actually Randy.Krouse, Krouse, at Milwaukee.gov.
Okay.
There it is.
All right.
That's correct.
Okay.
And by all means, anybody that's listening in, feel free to contact me about any details about our program.
Okay. Edie Dooley would like to know, did you train the hyperspectral imagery from the complete street tree inventory, or did it just know which one was an ash?
It really didn't have to do with the street tree inventory. That was kind of this was a separate project from the street tree inventory. I'm not exactly sure on the question. Did you train the hyperspectral imagery from the complete street tree inventory, or did it just know which one was an ash? The target species for the hyperspectral imagery project was ash. So that's the only species we really extracted data for. I hope that answers their question.
All right. I think
the imagery recognized the ash because it captured the light reflectivity of ash. So it has its own signature light reflectivity that's different than other species.
You gotta love technology. We're learning so much. So.
Yeah, this is, and I tell you what, I am not the expert on hyperspectral imagery. That's one part of our program. If you want really specific information on that, I can get you my boss's contact information, and he really can go into depth on hyperspectral imagery. His name is David Sevier with the City of Milwaukee.
All right. I think we are